Hello, I'm Charles Kierkegaard, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Kierkegaard Show, episode 88. In this week's episode, I invite you to reflect on times in your life when you have changed your mind on matters of importance, on matters of significance. How did that happen? What new information did you get? What happened to you? And what views and beliefs do you have today that you won't have next year? It's very convenient to make up your mind. I've made up my mind on that. It saves a lot of time. But I say you are taking a huge risk most times when you say, I've made up my mind. I'm going to share some insights with you on the price you pay when you say, I've made up my mind. I know the answer. I know what I think about that. I'm confident these insights will enable you to live more successfully, to live the life that you want to live. This show is founded on the formula SA plus P equals S. Self-awareness plus passion equals success, your success. And since 1993, when I left my legal career to become Australasia's passion provocateur, I have inspired, educated, provoked audiences, large groups, small groups, individuals, to discover and pursue their passion. Because when you are living your life with passion, when you are pursuing what you're passionate about, you magically become successful. I've shared my ideas in speeches, in coaching programs, in team building programs, and in my books, Passionate People Produce Passionate Performance. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." So I hope that watching this show provokes you to examine your life, to re-examine your life, to question what you do. You can see I'm wearing my red jacket, red, the colour of passion, so that when you are out and about living your life, when you see red, you go, red, passion. Am I living my life with passion? And regular viewers, regular listeners would know that passion is a source of unlimited energy from your soul, your spirit, your heart. And when you live life that way, difficult becomes easy. You have the energy to attack, to embrace anything that's difficult because you have the energy. When you're too tired, you don't. Each week in the show, I explore one big idea. One big idea, because too many ideas can confuse us. And then in the context of that one big idea, I share some resources to help you understand the big idea more deeply. Lyrics of a song, a quote, a book. I also share a health tip, a spiritual tip, and a joke, and some humour. After all, you know, I do say that life is not meant to be taken too seriously, and I hope you realise that I don't take it too seriously, that at the end of the day, when I'm 120 and I throw off this mortal coil, in the context of a 4 billion year old planet, you go, 120 years, and all the great people of the past, they've all died as well, so I dare say I'm going to die. So don't take it too seriously. Fight the fight, be passionate about it. Do what you see needs to be done. This show is not politically correct. I have no desire to be politically correct, and I'm certainly in favour of addictions of certain types, including addiction for caffeine. Caffeine is the fuel that drives the Charles Kierkegaard Show. How about that? This show definitely subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. The human spirit is such an amazing resource. You are far more than your thoughts and your body. So, let's review what's happened this week. Well, in Victoria, led by the worst government in Victoria's history, that's presided over the destruction of this state and this city of Melbourne that used to be the world's most livable city. It, at the present moment, has a central business district occupancy rate of 8%. It is a disgrace. Our government has passed a new alleged pandemic bill that gives unprecedented powers to a democratic government. It's the fact that the upper house crossbenchers voted in favour of it will be to their eternal disgrace and shame. They will never be forgiven for that, I say, treacherous disregard of the people of Victoria. In Northern Territory, with Australia's Aborigines, with the Indigenous tribes, there are some horrific stories coming out of Aborigines being locked in their communities, of being forcefully jabbed. We're looking for evidence that can be brought to the attention of the world, because forcing people to be jabbed is a breach of the Nuremberg Code, and what the Nuremberg trials showed post-World War II was that anybody who forces a medical procedure on another person in those days was hung, put into jail for years. I say that's what's going to happen to people who are forcefully assaulting with a deadly weapon, namely these injections. That's what's going to happen to them. And as a lawyer, I'm telling you that's what's going to happen. And it's a disgrace what's happening in the Northern Territory, because the World Council for Health, and I'm on that World Council for Health, is looking to support globally any help that Northern Territory's Aborigines and Australian Aborigines and Indigenous need. It's instructive this week that a number of senior federal politicians have announced their resignations, including the Minister for Health. The newspapers are full of it, saying Greg Hunt is resigning because he wants to be closer to his family. I say Greg Hunt can see the writing on the wall. I say that the notices of liability, of personal liability that have been served on him, will play out in the future, regardless of whether he is in Parliament or out of Parliament, as it will to all of the politicians who have made decisions that have so badly affected Australians. And this also applies to politicians in other countries. The issue of children who are not at risk, whose immunity systems are fantastic, to be jabbing children with untested poisons, gene manipulating materials, is a crime. I'm calling it out as a crime. Anyone who is doing it will pay a price. And do not say, I didn't know that it was a crime. I say it's a crime. I say it on good authority. I've been thinking about this matter. To be putting these untested, unsafe, ineffective jabs into children, let alone adults, is criminal. It is cruel. It is contrary to so many parcels of legislation it would make your head spin. It's also good to see during the week that a number of legal cases are getting traction. There's some success, and it doesn't matter how they're successful. If they're successful on points of law, that is useful. We must push back against government overreach. I say we're facing World War III. I invite you to consider whether you're facing World War III or whether you're gaily letting your freedoms be taken away from you in the name of security, this illusion of security. However, in the meantime, I'm pleased to say that my exercise regime continues, Julie's exercise regime continues, and I'm loving life. Despite being in the middle of World War III, I'm loving life because, as I said earlier in the show, this is so transitory, this life. You must choose to embrace and be happy in this moment. Do what you see needs to be done. I'm happy doing what I see needs to be done. I'm up for the fight. I'm passionate about the fight because I'm passionate about your freedom. I'm passionate about my freedom because it's freedom that makes you human. So, before we get to today's big idea, I invite you to visit our websites, covest.com for corporate programs, public programs, charlescovest.com for the self-awareness and passion quest. You can download the manifesto there. It's got some very useful ideas for you. You can subscribe to Passion Points to Ponder. And of course, I invite you to subscribe, if you're not yet a subscriber, to this YouTube channel. If you're listening on a podcast, subscribe to the podcast so that you are notified about each episode. And of course, if you're enjoying this show, the episodes that I've recorded previously are still relevant. The ideas, the one big idea, is still relevant. When did you last change your mind? That's the idea I want to explore today. When did you change your mind on a matter of importance, of significance, of substance? Think of that time. It would be most concerning, I suggest, if you can't think of a time. I'm sure you've changed your mind, particularly the fact that you're watching this show, because people who don't want to change their minds would not watch this show. This would be too scary, coming up with new ideas to think about. So how did it happen that you changed your mind? Let me share a couple of changes to get you into this mindset of exploring when you change your mind. Well, I was a lawyer. All my life, from the age of about 8, I wanted to be a lawyer. I was a successful lawyer. And then, in 1993, I changed my mind. I went to a in-depth 2-week learning program in Hawaii with Robert Kiyosaki. Many of you have heard of Kiyosaki. Excellent educator, and the people in that program, numerous external presenters came along to present. It was life-changing, and it changed my mind. I had set almost in concrete, not true, but I was committed for the rest of my life to being a lawyer, to practicing law that I loved doing, that I was passionate about doing, and I'm still passionate about the law. In an earlier episode of this show, I've talked about why I love the law, and I learnt new information. I gained new insights about the human condition. I gained new perspectives on the whole planet that led me to become an educator, to become Australasia's passion provocateur, rather than being a lawyer, because I decided I could add more value doing this work than being a lawyer. That was a significant change of my mind, which came about from information. I remember when I was on the Law Institute Council, when I was practicing as a lawyer. I was elected to the council for 3 years, and each month we would have meetings, and there'd be a lot of paperwork to read before each council meeting, and often there would be motions to take proceedings against lawyers for bad behaviour, to disbar them. And I remember so clearly reading the facts of a particular matter, and I moved the motion to disbar a particular solicitor. And then, when I heard additional information that was argued at the council meeting, I voted against my own motion. I changed my mind in the midst of this council meeting because I got new information. Third example, I have 5 children. They have all been jabbed. And yet, for the last 10 years, my attitude to what's being injected into children, when the fact that in Australia, in the first 4 years of life, a child has to be jabbed with 43 antigens in the first 4 years, when most people over 40 years of age didn't get more than 5 or 6. I was exposed to additional information because I was helping as a legal strategist, one of my good friends who understood the damage that was being done to children. I've changed my view about the safety and efficacy of these jabs. And that's the normal jabs, let alone gene-altering jabs. And I'm not using the V word, and that doesn't mean virgin, because YouTube will run around looking to censor anybody who says anything that the thought police don't approve of. Another area in which I've changed my mind is the question of judges and the court system. In Victoria and in Australia, the politicisation of the judiciary is obvious, is hugely disappointing, and from consultation with various lawyers, it is my view that 30%, 40% of judges are unacceptably politicised, where they will do the bidding of a government rather than applying the law. I used to have a view that judges could be relied upon to apply the law. I have changed my mind on that. Additional information was made available to me, and I had not closed my mind to new information. Fifthly, nutritional habits. I eat in particular ways, and I have done so, and I'm an expert in health because I want to be healthy. But I'm constantly looking for new information, new insights into what is going to be optimum nutrition for me. I haven't made up my mind that this is that way to feed this machine called my body. Let me tell you about a story of a guy called Mike who I met recently. He is a FIFO worker, fly in, fly out in Western Australia in the mining industry. And I said to him while I was having a coffee, actually I was having a whiskey, I said, Mike, have you ever changed your mind? He said, yeah. He thought a moment. He said, yes, I have. I was absolutely opposed to Donald Trump. And now, when I see what Joe Biden has done to America, and now that I can see what Trump was trying to do for America, I have significantly shifted my mind. I've changed my mind about Donald Trump because he was trying to improve America, where Biden is destroying America, said Mike to me. That willingness to go on a limb and say, I'm anti-Trump, and then come back and go, I've changed my mind, is a wise, intelligent thing to do that sometimes, often requires courage. I say to you, you pay a big price when you say, I've made my mind up. I know what the answer is. I've made my mind up. You cease to learn. And when you look at what's happening in science today, if you are unwilling to learn, and the advances in life are so incredibly rapid, you will be left so far behind, you won't know about it. You will become entirely irrelevant. Your ability to make decisions will be pathetically low. It's very convenient to make up your mind because it saves energy. And that's why I'm on about passion and health. Because the healthier you are, the more energy you have. The more passionate you are, the more energy you have. And if you're low on energy, then you don't have the intellectual, mental bandwidth to be thinking about new information. So you go, it's more convenient. So think about it. Where are you dogmatic? And dogmatic means you're committed to a dogma. Nothing to do with dogs. Well, that's a good jog, you know. The dogma ate my karma. Being dogmatic, firm. But there are certain things in which you can. For example, your values. And that's another question that I ask people these days in these challenges that we're facing on the planet. What's more important to you, health or wealth? I made that decision a long time ago. I'm clear on my values. I assure you I'm willing to look at them, and I'm constantly testing them because we have to make these value judgments. But values you can be more clear and certain about because you've done the personal development work to say, this is what my life is about. But if you're making decisions on matters in life, you are not making it on all the available information, and new information keeps coming out, and you closing your mind is causing you to pay a big price. I urge you to think about whether you want to have a more open mind. If you're not open to new ideas, then having a conversation with somebody is really a waste of time. And many conversations that I have with people in my life have been about, what happened in the past. In the past, stories about in the past. I have to say, I'm not interested about stories about what's in the past. I'm interested in about what sort of planet we want to live on, what sort of world we want to create, and what sort of life you want to have that you will assess as being successful. I urge you, open your mind, seek new information, and be willing to face the criticism of those around you who say, last year you didn't like Trump, now you like Trump. Good, let people criticize you. Far better that they criticize you and you are on your learning and development journey than to be dogmatically stuck in a fixed frame of mind that makes no allowance for the truth of what's happening. So, that then leads to the song this week, which is Cool Change by the Little River Band. Cool change. We're going to cool change, you know. It's time for cool change. And know that my life is so prearranged, I know that it's time for a cool change. So, how about it? How about time for a cool change? The book of the week. Famous book, The Closing of the American Mind by Alan Bloom. This was given to me in 1988. It's a profound book. It's a constant reminder to me when I see it on my bookshelf of the price that we pay when we close our minds. My quotes for you today, I have two of them. One by Thomas Paine, 18th century English philosopher. The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheaply, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. I love the man that can smile in trouble, that can gather strength from distress, and grow brave by reflection. 'Tis the business of little minds to shrink, but he whose heart is firm, and whose conscience approves his conduct, will pursue his principles unto death. Think about that. Re-listen to that. And then another famous philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard, he said, in order to swim, one takes off all one's clothes, well, almost all. In order to aspire to the truth, one must undress in a far more inward sense, divest oneself of all one's inward clothes, of thoughts, conceptions, selfishness, before one is sufficiently naked. I think they're both sets of profound words that challenge me to say, am I willing to keep getting naked inwardly? I certainly am externally. Ask Julie. That was a bit rude, wasn't it? Sorry for the children who are watching and listening. My health tip this week is a reminder from Professor Ian Brighthope. Great name, isn't it? Brighthope, who's an expert in health, a doctor, who said it is important that you understand the levels of vitamin D in your blood. Get it tested. And he has just supervised a major research project that said if your vitamin D levels are above 70 nanomoles per litre, you cannot get C19. Get that? Vitamin D levels high enough. And I invite you to consider this fear, in particular in Australia, this fear that has been promulgated of how deadly the sun is. You would die without the sun, and the sun is the source of the best source of your vitamin D. Check your vitamin D levels. My spiritual tip is a reminder to do your gratitude list. What are you grateful for? Whilst we're fighting the fights that we are in life these days, there's still a lot to be grateful for. Remember what you are grateful for so that you can live day by day enjoying the fights that you are engaged in, just like me, but grateful for the wonderful things that are actually happening in your life, because your life is not all crap. There are some wonderful parts to it, but if you focus on the crap, then you'll feel like crap. And lastly, since we've been talking about changing your mind, I've got a story about Tony Robbins, the wonderful educator on human personal development. And after doing a big night in New York in front of a live audience, big personal development, at 2 a.m. in the morning he came out on the streets of New York, and there was a hot dog vendor, had a sign there, best hot dogs, and the hot dog vendor recognised Tony. He said, "G'day, Tony," and Tony says, "Hey, these are the best hot dogs? Sure, I'll have one. How much are they?" $5. Tony hands over $10. The guy makes a hot dog. Tony gets it. Looks good. And he's standing there, and the vendor says, "What are you waiting for?" And Tony says, "My change." And the hot dog vendor says, "Tony, you, amongst all men, should understand that all change comes from within." There you are. I hope it made you laugh. It always makes me laugh when I tell that story. So that's about it for this week. Think about how you think about anything. Think about whether you're willing to change your mind. I hope you'll find this provocation valuable to you. I again invite you to visit our websites, covest.com, charlescovest.com. Subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you enjoy this, please share this show with your family, friends, colleagues. If you have any ideas that you want to share with me or ideas for future programs, please send us an email to charles@covest.com. And I'm not going to change my mind when I say to you, I wish you a week full of passion, full of challenge, full of laughs, and great health as you embrace this experience that we call life. And I look forward to being with you next week. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye.